2019.
Green flag out, and we are underway in
All the runs. It's circuit in the interiors. There's the green flag. Here we go, Bob. 3 to 100 is underway. Oliver Askew has won the 3 to 100. Side by side. Oh, the two big contact. 1 point on the front row. They'll accelerate and see the green flag. Askew, his 7th win of 2019. Green flag is waving, and we are racing here in Portland. Salary wins the Cooper Tires Indy Lights Grand Prix. Well, if you're sat waiting for 2020 to begin, we can commence our season virtually. Welcome to Barber Motorsports Park. It's located in Birmingham, Alabama, and it hosts the first round of the Ricmotech Road to Indy. It's presented by Cooper Tires, the iRacing eSeries that pits our best young talent up against each other virtually. All coverage today is, of course, on Apex Racing TV. We also want to welcome our Canadian audience from the MAVTV Motorsports Network around this 3.6 kilometer circuit that's just above 2 miles. It rounds itself clockwise as Barber Motorsports Park. 15 corners around this bumpy roller coaster that gives the drivers sitting in the cockpit quite a thrill. There's 25 meters of elevation change from the highest point of the circuit to the lowest. There'll be 45 minutes of racing action coming up later today. The drivers are currently in their 15-minute qualifying session, and if they don't nail their laps in qualifying, there'll only be a 200-meter run from pole position to turn 1 for our rolling start, and that will all be what they have to make amends for a poor qualifying performance. Fixed setups, of course, too, so everybody's on an equal playing field. We're not expecting any pit stops, so the race today is going to be fought out over 45 tough minutes. Good afternoon, everybody. Jonathan Simon on hand in the commentary booth. I'm alongside the voice of Road to Indy, Rob Howden. Rob, welcome to the virtual world for the first time.
Yeah, Jonathan, thank you so much. This is obviously something new for me, the opportunity to actually call a race for my own sim rig at my home office. So this is going to be very, very interesting. We were all hoping to get the season started a couple of weeks ago in St. Petersburg, Florida. Of course, right at the onset, really, of the coronavirus and COVID-19, there was an onslaught of cancellations, be it NASCAR, be it the NBA, NHL, of course, PGA Golf as well. We were hoping to get our weekend done. All the drivers on the road to Indy, USF 2000, Indy Pro, and Indy Lights all getting one session in the books on Friday before things got shut down. This at least gives the opportunity for these drivers to get back behind the wheel. Yeah, it's at home, in their office, in the shop, on a sim rig, but still an opportunity for them to get into competition wheel to wheel. I know so many of these drivers, Jonathan, focusing on this particular series, a 5-race series, just as if it was the start of the season.
And you talk about opportunities. It's a brilliant time for our partners and sponsors to get involved in motor racing throughout the virtual world where they can't in the real world. Of course, our series presented by Ricmotech. It's also presented by Cooper Tires on iRacing. We're powered by Extreme Motorsports 99. We have a pole winner award to hand out, Rob, that goes to the driver who obviously takes pole position in qualifying. That's presented by Symmetric Driver Performance Labs. And of course, we have a Fastest Lap of the Race award to be handed out, and that's brought to you by TSOladder.com.
Yeah, fantastic to have the guys from TSO Ladder with us. That's Trackside Online, Steve Wittick and Patrick Stephan, two of the leading journalists in the sport, and a great resource for the people who want to follow the road to Indy. You have to remember, these young drivers, the future stars of the NTT IndyCar Series, they're all trying to follow in the footsteps of Oliver Askew and Pato O'Ward and Renus VK, drivers who have just recently come out of the Indy Lights program to run now this year in the 2020 NTT IndyCar Series. Important opportunity for all these drivers, but again, as you said, said. Great to have some sponsors on board with us. We're super excited about getting this program underway, Jonathan. A 5-race series over the next 5 Saturday afternoons.
And I'm looking forward to them all. But the first race takes place here today from Barber, a track built by Alabama native George W. Barber. It's home to Charlotte's Web, not the novel, not the film, but the avid overtaking opportunity that presents itself at turns 5 and 6. We've also had some great wet races here in IndyCar, Rob, over the years. I especially remember 2014 and 2018. Today, though, it's going to be dry weather on iRacing. You can see some sunny skies out there, so not the toughest challenge for the drivers.
Yeah, this track, when it is wet, is a difficult challenge, as you said. One of the drivers who has mastered it in years past, of course, Joseph Newgarden, who is born and raised in nearby Nashville, Tennessee. He's always had a good handle on it, had some great races. These young drivers all trying to do the same thing. And you mentioned Charlotte's Web, that downhill run into turn number 5, Jonathan. You've driven this track. You're a professional sim racer, so you're going to be able to give us more insight than obviously I will about how to get around here quickly. But that downhill run, right, that downhill longer braking zone into a hard left-hander where you've got to get back on that power because that pass up into turn number 8 and 9, that downhill kind of right combination, those two parts of that racetrack I think are probably the two best opportunities to pass. I think turn 1's pretty tough. It's so quick.
Well, you talked about me being a previous sim racer. I miss my previous speed. I drove the DW12 around here, which is also available on the iRacing service, and you could subscribe at iRacing.com if you want to get involved yourself in simulated racing. But it was a racetrack, Rob, where I set the world record, but I sort of cheated my way through it because I was leading the race by about 15 seconds, and I had about 6 push-to-passes left. So I used them all on the final lap just to get the world record.
Well, you've got that on the resume, which is fantastic. I don't care if you had to use the push-to-pass. You got it on the resume. Interesting you talk about all your proficiency at iRacing. There is going to be a difference of experience. You talked about the fact that we have a fixed setup. We're using the Pro Mazda car with the Cooper tires, 280 horsepower, 6-speed sequential gearboxes. But everybody has different levels of experience. Those who have been part of the Road to Indy for the last number of years, Jonathan, obviously have used iRacing. They've wanted to learn new tracks they've never been to before, driving cars with more speed, closer chase speeds, the whole deal. They've used it. They have sims. They have a solid sim. There are some guys that are new to the Road to Indy in the USF 2000 program. They really haven't dove into the sim racing program yet. They haven't used it as training. That's going to be the separation from front to back. Drivers with more experience on this particular platform.
And Road to Indy and Anderson Promotions wanted to provide a 5-race series while real-life racing was suspended. And through Johnny Unser and Robbie Unser, they've reached out to Extreme Motorsports 99 to host this series on the iRacing service. So, Rob, we bring the best of the real world with the virtual world, and it's great to see the Unser family involved too.
Indeed, Johnny Unser, as he is in the Road to Indy, our race director for the Indy Pro 2000 category. Johnny also will be the race director here. We have a full race director. In fact, in one of our test races, we had one driver get a drive-through penalty. That could happen if we have certain issues. We are very close to getting things underway here, folks, from Barber Motorsports Park. We welcome all of you who have tuned in on so many platforms, whether it's the Road to Indy TV YouTube page, Apex Racing, and again, a big welcome to those of you in Canada who are watching on MAVTV. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're about set to go right now. So for you fans who are watching, please do us a favor as we handle the opening ceremonies as we do at any event. Race fans, please rise and remove your cover as the IndyCar Ministries' Jason Holt will provide us with the invocation, followed by the national anthem.
God, we just thank you so much for the blessing of another day. Lord, even though the world seems like it's going out of control, Lord, you are always in control, and we just thank you so much that our peace is found in you and not our circumstances. God, I thank you for the events today that these drivers can still use the gifts that you've given them. I pray for a great race, a smooth race, and most of all, a fun race that can take our minds off the chaos happening all around us. God, we pray for all of those in the medical industry right now fighting hard to keep us healthy and safe, and for all of those that are infected, God, we ask for your hand of healing to be over them. And God, we pray right now boldly that COVID-19 would go away. Lord, that things would level off, and this virus that you are over, Lord, would be rid of our world. I thank you so much, God, that we can just come to you. We can ask these things in the name above all names. In Jesus' name, amen.
It's me, your Uncle Cooper, and this is a Cooper tire. Great tire. Now, it's not gonna cook you a pot roast, but it will stop when you hit the brakes. And these truck tires can stop on average 10 feet shorter than other tires on a wet road. See, the trick is in the grip, and these tires grip like my handshake. Look, I'm your uncle. I love you. I want you to stop when you need to. Doesn't matter if it's for a red light or a duckling. So go with the Coopers. Cooper! And never start something you can't stop.
So welcome back to the commentary booth. It's Jonathan Simon alongside the voice of Road to Indy, Rob Howden. And now, Rob, the overall series winner over the course of 5 rounds, will have a point system involved too, which we'll take a look at a little later on. But the overall series winner will get to choose a COVID-19 related charity of their choice, and they'll get to donate a $1,600 prize purse. And that's certainly needed right now because the world is in quite some tough times.
Indeed it is, and very thankful for the sponsors and partners that have come on board with this eSeries to provide that kind of a prize package. And drivers, of course, as you know, will have to show great consistency throughout the 5 races if they want to be able to be the one who wins this championship. And it's something that they've probably never had on the resume that they'll use working forward because obviously trying to get those outdoor wins. But I think this particular program is going to be bragging rights for the rest of the 2020 season.
And we have paints on offer, so you'll see all the drivers running their Pro Mazda sort of scheme. This is the old Pro Mazda. Now it's running, of course, a different car. This is a Mazda that's been on iRacing for, I think, almost 10 years now. But it's realistic to see, Rob, that a lot of these drivers will be running the same paint scheme they would in the real world.
Yeah, this car, this Pro Mazda has been around for a number of years, probably about 20 years, and was obviously a big part of the road to Indy for a handful of years as well. A lot of great drivers were able to drive this particular car, guys that have worked their way into the NTT IndyCar series. But I love the fact that we've been able to bring all the brand new liveries in, and I'll give a shout out to people that absolutely worked their tails off over the last week to get these liveries done, get these paints done. They've all been uploaded really today, so the cars you see on the track are the same liveries you're going to see when we go racing in late June at Road American through to the end of the program in October in St. Petersburg. Very excited to see these new liveries come in.
And the beauty of virtual racing, Rob, is that you and I have had a chance to also jump into the cockpit, and we've had a chance to drive around this thrilling circuit of Barber Motorsports Park. And when I drove the track, I've noticed it requires a lot of precision. There's a lot of blind corners, especially that downhill braking zone into turn 7. Charlotte's Web, you tend to lose the rear end quite a bit, that downhill braking zone as well. So despite being such a high-speed circuit through the latter parts of the lap, the early parts of the lap are quite challenging, to be honest with you.
In talking to a number of the drivers, and Jonathan, you and I have discussed this before as well, is one of the big parts of this car is the way the car starts to get a little bit of oversteer when you're coming off the throttle. And talking to a lot of the drivers, they say throttle modulation was one of the most important parts of making sure that car was settled when you turn into a corner.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, there are going to be a lot of overtaking spots around here. Turn 1's certainly possible too. Turns 5, 6 into Charlotte's Web that we discussed. We'll bring you all of these throughout the broadcast and point you out to all these different overtaking spots. And then the high-speed final sector, Rob, we had a rehearsal race about a day or two ago, and it got quite chaotic in those high-speed sections. So we're hoping the drivers today behave themselves because, like we said, through Johnny Unser and Robbie Unser, those race stewards are watching and there's penalties to be handed out.
Jonathan, you've driven this track at speed. I would assume that if we threw out you out here with these drivers, knowing you know how to get around here, that you'd be right at the front of the pack. That back straightaway, 10, 11, are you fully flat out through 10 and 11? What's 12 and 13 like? When I tried it, I struggled being able to maintain a lot of speed through turns 12 and 13 before I worked up to the final complex on the racetrack.
Definitely turns 10 and 11 are flat out, or that's, through the first little S section you have. But then the second S section through the back straight, you sort of have to go full throttle. But then once you hit the apex of 12, you don't touch the curbs at all in this open wheeler car. They won't handle them right. But that's when you start to back off the gas a little bit. So we're about to switch over to the race now. So for those wondering what's going on now, the drivers just completed their qualifying session. We're switching over to the race, Rob, and we're going to get a chance to look at our grid for the first time.
Very interesting to see who will put their car on the pole and get that symmetric driver performance slab pole award. Again, good speed that we saw during the sessions by Philippe Dennis. He does not, though, get that pole position. It's the veteran driver, the team owner from Turn 3 Motorsports, Peter Dempsey, the Irishman, scoring the fast lap of 1:17.411. Again, Peter's resume very deep in Irish and British Formula Ford. As I said, won the Freedom 100 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But keep an eye on Philippe Dennis, the young driver from Carmel, California, just celebrated his 21st birthday. He'll run for RP Motorsports USA this year. He qualifies on the outside of row number 1. Eduardo Barrichello, second-generation driver. His father, of course, the F1 veteran Rubens Barrichello. He'll start third. David Martinez, the other team owner from D-Force Racing. Jonathan, the team owners looking pretty good, battling with their young drivers here today.
Yeah, and you can see those color bands located to their position number. So their position number in red for those of us who are joining an Apex Racing TV broadcast for the first time. The little color band, we'll give you a rundown of that throughout the pace lap, but those different colors identify which series these drivers run in the real world. But the team owners are identified in green, and you can see that with Dempsey and Martinez. So congratulations to Peter Dempsey, as Rob said. He wins the Symmetric Driver Performance Labs Pole Winner Award. Visit symmetriclabs.com for more information on high-quality driver coaching. But now we see the rest of the grid here, Rob, and as you can see, a lot of different nationalities represented, which is awesome to see.
That's a big part of the Road to Indy, Jonathan. It's truly an international field. Drivers from Uruguay, Colombia, Mexico, Canada, of course the U.S., a number of drivers from overseas as well. Robert McGinnis, one of the drivers in Indy Lights, I believe he qualified just outside the top 10. There's a lot of great drivers to watch stepping things up, and we're looking forward to a great race here today. The drivers pulling away from the grid, the command to start engines being offered up by Frank Rico from Ricmotech Racing. Drivers getting their first time around here, and Jonathan, you can attest to this, that opening lap, you're kind of bouncing back and forth in your sim seat, you're anxious, all these drivers getting set to go. Peter Dempsey's a veteran driver, though. No, I don't think there's going to be any nerves for him. Maybe Philippe Dennis on the outside, because he would like to make an impression. He only has one weekend with RP Motorsports. I talked to him yesterday. He doesn't have the full season budget put together yet. He's got 2 more months to find the money. This kind of delay is actually going to help Philippe Dennis. I think he'd like to make a really big impression here today at Barber Motorsports Park.
Goodness me, I know it's virtual racing, but I'm getting nervous as well for these drivers too. There's a lot of bragging rights on offer. Here's Phil Dennis, of course, just trying to get the pace car to get a move on here, that iRacing pace car. But like I discussed, Rob, these tires are going to be very cold on the opening lap. So this outlap is critical right now. Technically, it's a pace lap, of course, too. But come that first lap, if those tires aren't up to temperature, the drivers are going to suffer. But we're not expecting excessive tire wear for the entire 45 minutes of this event.
I can say this because I spoke with Johnny Unser about it. I'll tell you, he laid down the law in the driver's meeting that happened earlier today before we went qualifying. We want these drivers to get through turn number 1. Yeah, everybody anxious. They haven't had a chance to race at all this year. This is the start of the 2020 Road to Indy season. We're doing it here on iRacing. It's the eSeries brought to you by Ricmotech Racing Simulators and Cooper Tires. But again, all these drivers so focused, Jonathan. They want to have a good showing here. Yeah, they're all having fun, but we're putting on a show. And I'll tell you, everybody's going to have exactly the same nerves they would have if we were at St. Petersburg right now.
Yeah, definitely. I'm loving this so far. Can't wait to get the action kicked off here. Hope you're enjoying it from wherever you're watching. We've got a lot of viewers around the world, and hope you're enjoying this iRacing coverage, whether this is your first virtual broadcast or one of your many thousands you've been watching. I hope you enjoy all the coverage. But I'll tell you what, Rob, I'll leave it to you for the start here. But with Peter Dempsey on pole, he's going to have a mad, scrambling young field behind him, ready to pounce.
Philippe Dennis will start on the outside of row number 1. Pole sitter Peter Dempsey will set the pace. Again, Eduardo Barrichello And David Martinez on the front row. They'll work their way out of turn number 17. Time to start off the 2020 Road to Indy eSeries. We're coming down the front. We're looking for the green flag, and we've got it. Green, green, green. Underway. Racing into turn number 1. Good start there for Peter Dempsey. Can they get through turn 1 cleanly? A very fast part of this racetrack. Back to the top of the hill through turn 2 and 3. Big contact. Couple of drivers together further back. One of those drivers being, I believe, the number 9. Take a look at the replay here, Jonathan.
There was 4 wide as well at the start. You just saw it there in shot, and that was never going to end well, but it looked like the incidents, I think it did occur from that 4 wide battle. So one driver, that's quite an excessive incident there. Thank God it's virtual, but it's still Peter Dempsey who leads so far towards the end of the first lap.
Having a look at live timing to see if we can see who was involved in that incident. But again, as you said, Peter Dempsey able to get out early right now. A couple drivers into pit lane. 2 of our team owners, Louis Meyer from Legacy Autosport, Ricardo Juncos into pit lane, as is Exclusive Autosports Prescott Campbell. And you can talk about that a little bit, Jonathan. You don't have to get back to pit lane. You can reset. And I believe the driver is getting a couple of resets here.
Yeah, exactly. So those drivers who are listed in the pits are certainly, you can see them on the top left-hand side of the screen. They've had to pull that car into the pit. So luckily in the virtual world, they've been given a second chance. But this is Christian Rasmussen on screen, the Dane, who's pulling a 4-wheel drift there through the final couple of corners. He's in a nice scrap with the Mexican of David Martinez. And Braden Eves, my teammate in the virtual world, I'm gunning for him today in that Exclusive Autosport number 1. But he's also lost a couple of positions here at the start. No, excuse me, he's actually up 1 spot into 6th.
Yeah, if you look at 5th and 6th right now, Jonathan, Christian Rasmussen, Braden Eves, 7 wins among them last year in USF 2000. Christian scoring victories on the streets of Toronto for Jay Howard Driver Development. Also was able to win at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Braden Eves got off to a great start to the season, won the first 5 races of the year, but then struggled a little bit mid-season. He turned up the wick and was able to win the last race of the year at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca to win that USF 2000 championship, and with that, the full scholarship to move to the Indy Pro 2000 program. And Jonathan, that's the beauty of the road to Indy, the scholarship that goes to the champions. If you win a championship, you're going to the next level. And we've seen guys like Spencer Piggott, who didn't have the money to be able to do it, go all the way to the NTT IndyCar Series.
Yeah, and I love it. And I love to see our Aussies represented too. Cameron Shields down there in 12th. And as an Australian myself, we talked about me broadcasting on Cameron Shields all the way back in Formula Ford in 2017. And he's a brilliant young fellow, is Cameron Shields. So hopefully he does get his hands on a couple of those scholarships. But for the moment, it looks like that charity fund could be going to Peter Dempsey. I know it's round 1 of 5. But Denise and Barrichello behind are keeping him honest. You can see the top 3 starting to begin in their own group. And look at the top left-hand side of screen, Rob. Purple lap time for Eduardo Barrichello. Fastest out there on the racetrack. Indeed,
he looks so good in those practice sessions. I've had a chance to sit down in a couple of the practice sessions, and he really has a good feel for this racetrack. But going back a bit to Cameron Shields, last year running with Newman Walks Racing, was able to win actually on the oval at Lucas Oil Raceway. You figure Cameron, a veteran of Formula Ford racing, would have maybe found his first victory on a road course or a street circuit. He was actually able to get the win in the Freedom 75 in USF 2000. Cameron didn't have the money to be able to finish the remainder of the season, but he's found a place now with Legacy Autosport to start the year. Hopefully Cameron will be able to find the budget and the backing to run the entire, now what is a shorter season for USF 2000, locking it all into a couple of months later this year when we start at Road America in June. But Cameron, a very, very talented young driver, and just fantastic out of the car as well. He started actually back, I believe, in the 17th spot, so moving up into P11, a pretty good early run here for Cameron Shields.
He had a lot of incidents to help as well, so that's good for him. And now we have another spinner. That was David Martinez, who was in 7th the last time we saw him. And the D-Force Racing driver, he's going to rejoin the racetrack on the racing line. And here's the replay. Let's have a look at what happened to him.
Battling it out there with Rasmussen, rolling a lot of corner speed and just lost the rear end coming out of the corner there.
You don't want to touch those curbs, Rob. Remember we talked about it in this open wheeler. It just doesn't handle the curbs right.
And the drive, look how close that was. That was Cameron Shields, I think, may have made some contact coming through. A little bit of right front, or rather left front contact for Shields as he had to take evasive maneuvers to be able to get through. Good shot here, though, coming down through Charlotte's Web. Things kind of settling down a little bit right now, Jonathan, which we wanted to see. Get some individual battles going. That's Braden Eves getting ready to, I believe, go to work on Andre Castro.
Yep, Eves very quick on iRacing. He's one of the top iRacers on the service in the US, on the road side, that is. He's quite fancy his chances in this series. Didn't qualify too well, but he's up a spot here. And he's now through turns 9 and 10, the fast sweeping S section. He's right behind. That's the 77 of Andre Castro, who won our rehearsal race, Rob, about a couple of days ago. So surprised to see Castro down in 5th.
You know, some pretty good running here for Castro. We knew how quick he has been. Dennis actually won one of the rehearsal races as well, Philippe Dennis. But one of the things about Braden Eves, tough for him, because when we were in St. Petersburg, we got that one session in the books, and Braden, who's running for Exclusive Autosports, strong in testing and in practice, but was able to have the fast lap. He was a half a second quicker than the field in our practice session for that event in St. Petersburg, and he wanted to go racing so badly. Thankfully, he knows what to do here in the iRacing world as well, so we may see him on top of the box before this season is all said and done. Following Barrichello right now in that number 22 machine, he'll run for Pabst Racing this year, and the Brazilian looking really good. Barrichello P2, he's been able to get by the number 5 of Philippe Dennis, so move Barrichello up to second. He's the chase driver now, trying to reel in Dempsey.
How important is the draft in this car? It's the same as the real world, isn't it? I had one of the experts, Julian Dunn, on the iRacing simulator. He's an expert in this car. He's been driving it for a number of years, and he's talked to me about how even if you're 1 second off the pace, you can really pull yourself in the battle, just like we had that 4-wide finish at Indianapolis a couple of years ago. And this is Nolan Segal on screen for the J. Howard driver development. Now watch Braden Eves. So again, Rob, all these drivers now, you can find yourself half a second off the pace, but as long as you keep within that draft, it's all good. You're still in with a shot.
Looks like we may have had some contact there. Ayrton Ori, I believe, going around. We'll get the replay. Here's the 027 Ayrton Ori, rookie driver in the program this year, rolling his way down into turn number 8 and 9. Climbing that curb on the inside and just over-rotating, getting back into the corner, trying to go back to power, likely a little bit early, Jonathan.
Yeah, you don't want to be doing that, as we discussed. The curbs are going to certainly hurt your advantage, especially through turn 7. It's a blind dip through the braking zone there. Right back on the action here with Braden Eves. Have a look here at Christian Rasmussen, I think, battling away with Andre Castro. It's Castro in the 77 pulling off the move here on the left-hand side. Now they're going to be alongside each other in the run to 7.
Yeah, back over to 7 and a good outside run there, as you said, for the number 77 of Andre Castro, able to hold off that challenge for a time. But again, on the outside, it's Rasmussen. He takes the position back. As it looked to me, I think that Castro may be in a position to take it, but a good run around the outside, as I said, for Rasmussen. But look who's right there now. This side-by-side battle has brought Braden Eves back into the fight. Not even Braden Eves, Corey Enders as well, the D-Force driver in the number 7. He's put in a ton of contact coming up out of turn number 11.
That looked like Rasmussen touching the rear end of at least Braden Eves. Braden Eves looks okay here. Let's have a look at the replay of that, though. Too wide through this section of the racetrack just never works. And you can see here, getting a bit loose there was Rasmussen. Surprised that Eves wasn't turned around, and then another driver in the background as well, too, off the racetrack.
Jonathan, that was 12 and 13. I got you to kind of detail what you do there. You're flat out on the way into the corner, but you got to roll back off the throttle, and too wide makes it a lot tougher to try to get the right line through that corner.
I remember going too wide there in the DW12 on iRacing many years ago. I'm surprised I came out the other end of it, Rob. I literally was screaming for joy. Couldn't believe it. I
can tell you that Rasmussen probably had a little different scream. It wasn't joy for sure, as he felt that car kind of check away from him. Luckily, as you said, for Braden Eves, I'm surprised there would maybe not be damage on Braden Eves' car. He's still running P5. As more contact, that's coming out of turn number 4 down to the bottom of the Alabama roller coaster. Here's the replay here. That's Manuel Cabrera trying to go around the outside of one of the team turn 3 drivers. Contact there, and Cabrera goes around. The Exclusive Autosport driver falling back to the tail of the field. And a lot of damage as well to that Pro Mazda. So certainly going to suffer for the rest of this event, of course, too. We're almost 10 minutes into our 45-minute event. So what we're not expecting, Rob, is pit stops. So these drivers are trying to settle in that rhythm. And a driver that has done that is Phil Dennis in the second position, fastest lap of the race, and he's catching Dempsey up ahead here. Do you think Dempsey can be knocked off pole position? You know, Peter's such a veteran driver, Jonathan. He's not going to get phased for sure, whether or not he takes taking care of the tires here or not. Philippe Dennis, as we said, won that rehearsal race, and he actually dominated. He lapped up to the top 5 drivers. It was a 17-second victory for Philippe. He loves his iRacing, does it quite a bit, and actually, he does like this car. It's other cars he likes better, but he does like this Pro Mazda car, which I think plays well for him. He's chasing, as you said, only a half a second back. Barrichello was second for a time. He's fallen back to third. He's about a half a second back of Dempsey. Andre Castro holding on to fourth, and Braden Eves in fifth. Colin Kaminski having a pretty good run as well. He's in P6, but Reese Gold, we got to talk about Reese a little bit. He started 23rd. He has worked his way up into the 7th position. Reese Gold, a young driver, his second year in the USF 2000 Championship, won the Lucas Oil School of Racing Formula Race Car Series a couple of years ago. He's definitely a driver running for Cape Motorsports, Jonathan, that could win and battle for the USF 2000 Championship this year.
Yeah, the young man's faring himself well in the sim. I had a look. I'm not sure if I found the right Reese Gold. Can be a common name, but I did find a Reese Gold on iRacing, and I was quite concerned coming into this event. I wasn't sure how he'd fare, but he's proving me wrong so far in the 7th position, the young man. And
just 15 years of age as well.
Yeah, and he's only better from here then. It's only uphill for the young man.
Yeah, this is it. 14 years. We had a couple of 14-year-olds last year in USF 2000, along with Nolan Siegel and Jack Crawford. Jack, the Texan, now a part of the Red Bull driver program running over in Europe this year. We're thrilled to have both Nolan Siegel and Reese Gold back for their second season in USF 2000. Keying back on this battler for the lead, Peter Dempsey, the veteran driver, as I said, a former Freedom 100 winner, a veteran of Formula Ford racing, whether it be the Formula Ford Festival, the Walter Hayes Trophy, running with his father's Cliff Dempsey Racing Team, the team of choice for both the Team USA Scholarship and the Team Canada Scholarship. A lot of great drivers have come through that Cliff Dempsey Racing stable. Cliff and his wife, just tremendous people. One driver going off as they come through. That's Dempsey. He gets shoveled off by the lap car. Dempsey goes all the way around, a lap car getting in the way.
I'm not sure if there was damage or whether or not Dempsey touched the wall, but certainly a lapped car in the way, costing Peter Dempsey there.
Unbelievable. Let's have a look at it here, Jonathan, as they work their way down. That is the turn number 12 and 13. That car was going off track. Peter elected to take to the right side of the track to avoid contact. What a disappointment for Peter Dempsey, who had the lead over Philippe Dennis. Almost contact with a slower car on track going into turn 12.
And I know this is the virtual series, of course, too, but he will be fuming because he pretty much, I wouldn't say had the win in the bag, but he certainly had at least a podium or top 3 finish for himself. Whether or not he went to victory lane is a different story, but I've had my fair share of lap drivers get in the way, Rob, and I can tell you I was more than fuming after that. And you can see from race control that incident is being under review.
Yeah, the number 40, the driver being involved in that, I believe that's Jack William Miller, the driver involved in the incident there. He was slowing coming down the back straight. And at that point, when you're that slow, you've got to get out of the way. You got to pull off track, get off to the side of the racetrack, because you just simply do not want to interfere. Johnny Unser's going to have a look at that. Our race director, I would not be surprised to see a drive-through penalty for Jack William Miller.
And this is beautiful for Barrichello now, because what it does is it only allows him to take the advantage of the draft now. Phil Dennis doesn't have a draft to use up ahead of him. For Braden Eves, it's the same on Andre Castro. These two have got to start. Would you say they would start working together, Rob? How does it work over there in the road to Indy?
You know, I would believe that they would. These drivers, of course, have come through the national karting ranks as well, and when you get out front like this is when you just settle in. Try to pull away a little bit. I would expect to see these drivers run clean. On board now here, though, with Braden Eves. He's going to work on trying to find a way by Andre Castro. But Barrichello, I don't see Barrichello in a position where he's going to want to challenge too much. We're early, right, Jonathan? We're not even 13 and a half minutes into this race. A long way still to go here, over 30 minutes. Now's the time where you just start banging out laps and keep pulling away.
Yeah, one of the cars getting straight out of the way. Now, the thing is, as a driver, Rob, if I feel like if I'm Braden Eves and I'm in his position and I see that Denise and Barrichello are pulling away ahead, I'm just going to pass Castro and make my move on, because if he can't sustain the pace and catch the leaders, you got to do it yourself, can't you?
Yeah, 5.5 seconds back, Andre Castro and Braden Eves in the exclusive Autosport number 1 machine, that one denoting his USF 2000 championship. He's been right on him, but you're right. He's got to get by here. There's no sense in waiting, especially if they keep falling back, and they do. 5.7, 5.8. You can see the ticker on the left side of the screen. Castro just falling away and allowing Denise and Barrichello to pull away. This could end up being a 2-driver battle if Eves doesn't get by soon.
And it's been a thrilling race so far. We're almost 15 minutes into it. It's Phil Dennis who leaves. Some updates on the penalties for car number 40 there. We'll talk about all of that on the other side of this.
What a weekend for the driver from Canada. It's a sweet back-to-back jacks for Parker Thompson. Just like the real-world Road to Indy events, we are pairing drivers down. Up front, of course, Philippe Dennis, the driver for RP Motorsports Racing, leading the way, but not by much over Pabst Racing's Eduardo Barrichello, the American, and the Brazilian battling it out, working their way through some of the slower cars in the tail of the field. And we had an incident earlier before the break where our leader, Peter Dempsey, closing up on the slowing car of Jack William Miller, the Miller Vinatieri Motorsports driver in the red machine, right down the very quick part of the back of the racetrack, the back straightaway into turn number 12. Miller not able to get out of the way. Dempsey trying to go to the outside, or rather, the outside, which is the right side, driver's right. He ends up going off track and spinning, and race director Johnny Unser having a look at the replay and laying down a drive-through penalty for Jack William Miller for the contact over in turn number 12 and 13.
And that was Braden Eves making his way up into the top three. He's done what I discussed there, Rob. He's probably thought, I want to get a move on here from you, Andre Castro. I think I'm quicker than you. And the number one exclusive Autosport driver will scream away here on the main straight to begin yet another lap around the Barber Motorsports Park. Welcome along, whether you're joining us on the Apex Racing TV and our associated platform. And welcome to our Canadian viewers on the MAVTV Motorsports Network. It's Jonathan Simon alongside the voice of Road to Indy, Rob Howden. Rob, what have you thought about virtual racing for your first time?
I'll tell you this, I'm just as excited as I would be if we were at St. Petersburg or if we were at Barber Motorsports Park in an outdoor race, because I know that these drivers, I know them, I know that they're behind the wheel, they're sims. This is exactly the same thing. It's a different physical feel, of course. They're not bolted into the cockpits of their Tatis chassis in USF 2000 or Indy Pro or the Dallara IL-15 of Indy Lights, but they're still behind the wheel and they're still hustling. And it's still the same thing I always say. It's all about driver input, steering input, throttle and brake modulation. It's everything that they would have to do to be successful outdoor. They got to do the same thing here indoor, and that's what I love about iRacing. This is super good fun so far, and the racing's been great. A couple drivers out front, Dennis and Barrichello, but then we got Eves, Castro, Kaminski, and Gold all within a couple of seconds.
You know, you mentioned that. I read an article this morning on Louis Delatraz, who's a Formula 2 driver in Europe, and he talked about how the simulator is very, very accurate. The only thing you lack is that you can't feel the car through your butt. And it's a bit of a struggle. You know, that's a lot of what these guys will be doing, especially the likes of Reese Gold, who's just jumped from karting, and we're feeling the car from your rear end is ever so important in the karts.
Reese was a tremendous young karter in a number of different levels and won a lot of races at the junior level. Jumped up at 14 years of age to run in the Lucas Oil School of Racing, their Formula Car series. Was able to win that championship. Moved to Cape Motorsports, really the juggernaut of USF 2000 racing. They've won the last 9 championships. Reese had a great run last year. Was very consistent. Finished, I believe, every lap in the year and was able to finish 10th overall on the points at just 14 years of age. He's back with Cape Motorsports again this year, and it's that one thing you said. You don't get that seat-of-the-pants feel. You don't get the G's. And especially at a track like this one here, when you go through some of the undulations, you feel your body get pulled down into the car. Some of these faster corners, you're getting shot to the left and the right. You don't have those lateral G's in these cars, and that makes it a little bit tougher. But I think, Jonathan, you could speak to this. It probably puts more pressure on the actual steering input as Gold now going to work here on Colin Kaminski.
And that's a brilliant stuff about sim racing is you have force feedback wheels that help you. Reese Gold right now up the inside of Colin Kaminski. And I don't know if he sent that move properly. Kaminski right back up the inside. He's lost it on the apex though. And now they're going to be alongside each other on the run to turn 1.
Here comes Reese to the inside of turn number 1. Book it. He's through. Good pass there. Kaminski's going to try to go back up the inside of turn number 2, and he does. Side by side through 2, back down the hill. Kaminski through the Alabama roller coaster, taking it back. This is one-on-one, mano-a-mano racing. I don't care if we're outdoor or here on iRacing. Gold going to try to go to the inside of turn number 5. If he's deep enough to the corner, he may be able to hold him. But again, Kaminski on the outside. And I'll tell you, Jonathan, we see that move as well when we're outdoors at Barber Motorsports Park. Even the virtual track here has that same outside move. And on board here now with Reese Gold coming down through turns number 8 and 9. Very tough part of this racetrack, rolling back on the throttle. And then the quickest part of the track here, Jonathan, down through turn number 10 and 11.
How beautiful is that? We get a good shot of all the different camera reels we have available on the simulated service of iRacing. Visit iRacing.com, get yourself a subscription and join in on very serious simulated racing. You can't just jump in and be good at this stuff, Rob. It's just like driving the real world. You've got to have a lot of seat time, and there's no question that Max Verstappen, one of the quickest drivers in the world right now, is one of the quickest I've ever seen on iRacing as well in its history.
Well, you said it's all about seat time. And, there's been times I've just jumped on to play and I kind of get frustrated with myself saying, hey, you know what? I'm not able to get done what I want to get done. I'd like to be faster. But again, it's all about seat time. And once I run a couple of sessions and more laps, then I start picking up the speed. And a guy like Verstappen, obviously, one of the world's best drivers as it is, but when he gets behind the wheel of a sim, I love seeing some stuff pop up where, hey, I got a chance to run against Max Verstappen. And that's the kind of cool thing about iRacing. You jump into a session or a race, you don't know who you're going to see there. And Max Verstappen's one of the guys you see on a regular basis.
And this is Andre Castro. Let's ride on board with the Legacy Autosport number 77 driver.
Putting the pressure here on Braden Eves, as you said, Jonathan. Braden was able to get by early. The gap still, though, from them back by about a half a second. Braden's not been able to get into that lap yet. Leaders turning mid to low 117s. Last time by Braden Eves, a 117.8. So losing about a half a second a lap. But back here with this great battle between Reese Gold and Colin Kaminski. Colin in the Indy Pro 2000 category with Pabst Racing. Gold running in USF 2000 this year with Cape Motorsports. Where else are they going to get a chance to go head-to-head like this? A 14 or a 15-year-old now and a 20-year-old battling it out here on iRacing.
Yeah, I love this right now. This is a thrilling fight. Two guys racing at the top of their talents, doing an awesome job. And you know what? We talk about simulated racing, Rob, as well. I just thought of this the other minute. We're racing in the afternoon right now in the US, and a lot of these drivers are used to racing, in the early mornings we were discussing the other day? It's quite different for them.
To be honest, we either run early morning or late in the afternoon. We're normally not in the middle of the order. Sometimes we get some good slots on the Saturdays, but a lot of times we're on track pretty early in the morning.
Yeah, not as early as here. It's 4:30 a.m. here in Australia, so I think that's a little bit too early right now to say. I've never raced at 4:30 a.m. And you can see at the top of the screen regardless anyway. There are color bands for each driver. So, Rob, they can identify each driver through, of course, a different color band on the left-hand side of the screen. So, Phil Dennis, for example, P number 1, is an Indy Pro 2000 driver.
Yeah, he's a fantastic driver, as you said, USF 2000 Indy Lights. A great mix here. And again, look at this. Andre Castro working his way back around Braden Eves, coming through turn number 12 and 13 on the back straightaway. So we believe that Eves may be able to make that move to get by, but no, Castro getting back through to take over that third position again. So that's third and fourth. Castro and Eves back on board here, and look outside of the rear of the Pro Mazda, the Pabst Racing machine of Colin Kaminski out of Homer Glen, Illinois. He in his fourth year here on the road to Indy, and very, very different experiences coming through the ranks for Colin Kaminski and Reese Gold. Colin's father, a longtime SCCA racer, a Sports Car Club of America racer. His first time jumping in about 17 years of age in an SCCA car, the Spec Racer Ford at Road America. Just jumped in a field of 60 cars. Had a good feel for it, looked pretty good, and he has worked his way into USF 2000 and is now seriously looking at potentially getting to the NTT IndyCar Series. Colin, a very strong driver. Every year, Jonathan, getting better and better. He doesn't have the karting experience that Reese Gold did starting at 8 years of age, but Colin's kind of been thrown into the car world. A second-place finish at Road America last year, his best result. He'll be focused on trying to get a race win here in 2020.
You talk about the Spec Racer Ford. Man, I miss that car. I haven't driven that on iRacing for about 5 years. And you can see there's a bit of front wing damage to Colin Kaminski's Pro Mazda, the number 19 Pabst Racing car. So on iRacing, when you have that damage, if you're new to the virtual world, that can definitely limit your straight line speed.
Another driver is coming up through the ranks here. We, of course, want to give props to those who started deeper in the field and have run well. As we said, Reese Gold up 17 positions, started 23rd, now running in 7th. This great battle here with Colin Kaminski. Cameron Shields started in 7th, the Legacy Autosport driver. Started in 17th, rather. He's now up into the 7th spot. And Yuvan Sundaramurthy as well, second-year driver in USF 2000. He started back in 19th. He's now running in the 9th spot. Yuvan on board here right now with the Pabst Racing number 21. Did 3 starts in the USF 2000 program, a triple header at Mid-Ohio, and had a really good run. Actually got my Road to Indy Insider star of the race. I was very impressed with his consistency. Last year with Pabst Racing, had some pretty good runs, a little up and down, some flashes of brilliance, but he's a young kid who continues to develop, and I think that Yuvan will be one to watch here this year. Pabst Racing, Jonathan, one of the best teams on the road to Indy.
Yeah, I love it. This is Max Kaiser on screen, who's also on the attack here. I think Yuvan's got the coolest name I've ever seen in the world of motorsports, and up ahead, of Kaiser. Was that Lucas Cole who spun? No, excuse me. That's Nico Christodoulou, the Canadian. And the D-Force Racing driver is going to turn that Pro Mazda around. He's lost what looks like 10 seconds there, Rob. Not good for his confidence.
He's a young driver just coming up the ranks, only 14 years of age, and I think he was just trying to roll a lot of speed. Max Kaiser, the Miller Vinatieri Motorsport driver, pushing him. I had some trouble like that when I was trying to get through turn number 1. It seems to me like if you try to roll too much corner speed and then you try to pinch that exit and get too much wheel into it, it goes around pretty quickly.
So, of course, we have a fastest lap of the race award. Now, we saw a few drivers go purple earlier on, but the fastest lap of the race award is brought to you by TSOladder.com. It's also presented by Cooper Tires. So, Philippe Dennis, at the moment, you can see at the top left-hand side of the screen, will win that award. But let's see if anybody decides to pip him towards the end of the race. I do like Eduardo Barrichello's chances.
Well, you could talk about these cars, these Pro Mazda cars, Jonathan. What are they like later in the race? Are we going to see good laps coming down? Because Barrichello turned a quick lap as well, a 1:17.39, 1:17.35, the fastest for Denise. Are we going to see these cars get faster and faster near the end of the race?
Definitely, because that track is rubbering in. It's all simulated on iRacing. You'll see the tarmac here as we ride on board with the exclusive Autosport driver, Braden Eves. The tarmac will get darker. You can see here through the latter parts of the lap. This is where all the rubber's starting to come in. So lap times will increase. I think we just saw a car off the racetrack there on the inside. But whilst that happens, the fuel's also coming out of the car too. So the rear end's going to loosen up. And I think these lap times are certainly going to get quicker. Tire wear, like I said, on the pace lap is non-existent in this car.
Hey, let's point out one thing as well. Look at the driver running in P10 here right now. That is Peter Dempsey. He was the leader for the first number of laps. Here's Dempsey trying to close up here on Yuvan Sundaramurthy in the number 21. You can see some left front wing damage there on the Turn 3 Motorsports machine of Peter Dempsey, but he's starting to close up. In fact, he's going to make a move to the inside of Sundaramurthy coming into turn number 12 and 13. He's rolling through. He's now up into the 9th position. His last lap I saw was a 1:17.7, less than a half a second off the leaders. Dempsey's still working forward, and there's still a lot of time left in this race. 17 minutes still to go in a 45-minute race here as we kick off the Road to Indy presented by Cooper Tires, Ricmotech Racing Simulators eSeries here at Barber Motorsports Park. And Peter Dempsey trying to fight his way back up here.
Yeah, that's a tough one as well. It's a mental game too, is racing. When you have a spin like that, you don't want to crack it in the cockpit as we watch Colin Kaminski here again in this battle. This battle never ends between himself and Reese Gold. But it's a nice mental game, is motor racing. You don't want to give up. Is Reese Gold, though, again alongside possibly on Kaminski. He does the smart thing, and that's form up through the latter part of the lap. You can't go too wide through there.
How great is this for the 15-year-old Reese Gold, showing great poise, great maturity, battling it out with Colin Kaminski. Again, Colin, a three-year driver in USF 2000, graduating up to Indy Pro 2000 with Pabst Racing this year. But on board here with Reese Gold, the young driver from Miami, Florida, just 15 years of age, and putting a great amount of pressure on Kaminski. And as you said, had to look to the inside of turn number 12, but thought better of it. And that's the maturity that you get from more experience. And we know this for sure. On board here with Yuvan Sundaramurthy. Looks like Yuvan may have had an issue and had to go back to pit lane.
Yeah, that's very odd because we're not expecting any scheduled pit stops, and he's not received any penalties. So that's certainly been of his choice. Maybe he's missed the final corners, and I don't think he has, but I've seen drivers in the past at Barber just have an oversteer moment and accidentally enter the pit lane.
Colin Kaminski still holding off Reese Gold. A little bit more breathing room now, a couple of kart lengths, as you can see. They're kind of closing up right now on Devlin DiFrancesco, a driver who we watched run in F4 and F3 over in Europe. F2 as well. Maybe we'll see Devlin DiFrancesco potentially coming to the Road to Indy this year. Would love to have that driver come to be part of the program. Andre Castro in the Legacy Autosport number 77, still running in that third spot. Falling back still a little bit. They're still about 5.5 seconds back. Jonathan, they're turning good lap times, both Andre and Braden Eves, but just not able to at all eat into the current cushion held by the front two drivers.
Now, I might have missed that penalty. I'm going to look at race control again, but Yuvan Sundaramurthy has been black flagged for a drive-through penalty. Is that what he was serving? Or I think he's come in the pits again, so he's received another black flag, and that's for an unsafe entry in the pit lane. So I think he's being caught speeding on entry. So yet confirmed, he's made a second trip into the pit lane. So Unfortunately, a double whammy, Rob, for Juven, who's had a promising race so far. He was up 10 spots the last time we saw him.
Yeah, the top of the broadcast, we talked about the different levels of experience in iRacing for some of these drivers. And in speaking with Juven, he doesn't have a ton of iRacing experience. I guarantee you between now and next Saturday, when we get ready to go to the next event at Circuit of the Americas, he's going to be on the sim quite a bit. But again, that pit lane speed, entering pit lane, is not something you do on a regular basis. Coming in a little bit hot, I think it's 45 miles an hour, the pit lane speed. You get over that, you find yourself in trouble.
Yeah, so it looks like some of these drivers are having a pit for fuel. Like we said, we were told that we're not expecting any pit stops, but maybe some of these drivers have either opted to pit for fuel. Some of them may. It depends on how much that fuel tank is limited. It's only about 0.7 liters per lap here, Rob. That's about 0.2 gallons, depending on your units of choice. So, again, it just depends on that tank size. So we'll wait and see whether or not your leaders can make it to the end of the race. But if they're not pitting, this will help the likes of Eduardo Barrichello, who's lost 5 seconds to Dennis in P1, hopefully claw his way back through the pit stop phase.
Yeah, definitely an interesting development right now. We'll try to get more information from race control on whether or not actually we have drivers coming in and making pit stops for fuel. Here's again watching Andre Castro, who has had a couple starts with Legacy Autosport in that number 77 machine. Look at Braden Eves pounding the curb coming through turn number 8, trying to close back up. Lost a little bit at the exit, but Braden Eves really putting the pressure here now. So again, some pretty good racing thus far. We've seen a number of drivers pair off. We saw Philippe Dennis and Eduardo Barrichello be out front, but a little bit of a gap right now for Philippe Dennis. He's got over 4 seconds right now on Eduardo Barrichello. Castro and Eves lined up as we thought. Same goes for 5th and 6th place runners. Colin Kaminski and Reese Gold, those drivers all running together. Well back is Cameron Shields, and actually the top, the Philippe Dennis has lapped up to 10th position. Corey Enders now down a lap in a 10th spot. Philippe Dennis doing what he did in the rehearsal race on Thursday.
Yeah, I love this as well. The rehearsal race was, I think the drivers knew it was unofficial, so they all got a little bit rowdy, but I've seen some of the best driving standards I've ever seen on iRacing. These drivers have been hard at work practicing. Some of these drivers are very experienced on the sim, like we discussed, the likes of Braden Eves in P4, but Rob, I'm very surprised with the guys who might have never driven on iRacing before, who are driving quite consistently, quite well here, even if they're down the order.
It's all about experience, as you know, Jonathan. I would have to believe that the delta between the drivers that with lots of experience and those with maybe none is going to continue to shrink up throughout this 5-race series. The more time they get behind the wheel, hey, we're all locked at home right now with self-isolation and quarantine anyways. Where else would you rather be if you're a race car driver? On a simulator. I guarantee you, sims are getting shipped left and right so people are able to race. Of course, as always, in any race weekend, Jonathan, we are a support for the NTT Indycar Series. They have an event at Watkins Glen International later today. Robert Wickens, one of the drivers, of course, was injured at Pocono a couple of years ago. They were able to get a simulator together for him with a handbrake. Robert Wickens will be back behind the wheel at an NTT Indycar Series event here virtually on iRacing.
And your leaders are in the pit lane. This is Phil Denise. Eduardo Barrichello follows him. Colin Kaminski does as well. So they're not going to make it on fuel here. They're about 10 minutes short. There's the Paps Racing driver of Barrichello. A very slow entry into his box as well, Rob, there. I certainly think he could have gone in a bit quicker. So let's see. Well, I'll tell you what. Phil Dennis is already out of his box.
This is interesting because this is not something we had expected. I think we were led to believe that we were going to be able to go green to checker on the tank of fuel. Race director actually laying down a call to all the drivers to check fuel. Pit may be needed. So everybody's coming into pit lane, as you said. Philippe Dennis into pit lane, Castro as well. There's Philippe Dennis in the number 5 through Charlotte's Web. That's the 5th corner on the racetrack. Kink turn number 6 and 7 coming back up the hill. Back on board here with Andre Castro and Braden Eves. They are now the leaders on the racetrack, but they have not yet made the run to pit lane. Can they go the distance? There's still quite a ways to go. We are right at about the 10-minute mark before we see the checkered flag.
And am I correct in seeing that Denise has now gained 10 seconds in that pit stop phase on Eduardo Barrichello? That's heartbreaking for the Brazilian. So there is Denise on screen in P4. And yes, the gap between him and Barrichello, Rob, 15 seconds now. So I talked about Barrichello having a poor pit stop phase. It's backfired for him as we watch Max Kaiser here. But yeah, just again, Reese Gold into the pit lane 2 for P3. It's all going off right now, Rob. Just all of a sudden, we weren't expecting this.
Well, listen, we weren't even expecting the pit stop to happen, so I would expect not many of the drivers had ever practiced getting into the pit as quickly as possible. We all know in the outdoor racing, when we're actually at a racetrack, it's the in-laps and out-laps that are so crucially important in leveraging a pit stop, right? You're trying to get in as quick as you can on fresh tires. You can put down as best a lap you possibly can, and that can change 1, 2, 3 seconds of gap. You can leap over a driver if you have a good in-lap and a good out-lap. One driver is damaged down in the corner here as well, coming through turns number 12 and 13. They'll be right in front. Keying on the battle right now with Peter Dempsey as well. I think he's battling it out with Flynn Lazier, second-generation driver. Flynn's father, of course, a former Indy 500 winner in Buddy Lazier. We hope to see Flynn back in the road to Indy here in 2020. Man, there is just a ton of action going on here right now. Pit stops, we didn't think that was going to happen at all. It's definitely changed as more drivers coming into pit lane. That's Castro and Eves.
It is brilliant stuff by there from the Irishman of Dempsey, just right past Lazier. And this is Castro versus Eves. We'll keep track of this. So the iRacing Pitstops, the better you park in your pit bay, Rob, the quicker your pit stop will be, of course, too. So if you park inaccurately, you can lose time. And if you miss your box, you'll have to reverse, and that can cost you some vital seconds.
Great insight from Jonathan, of course, a professional sim racer himself and a very talented broadcaster. Great to have him on board here with this Road to Indy eSeries. And pit stops are changing everything, as you said. Yuven Sundermurli a little bit off. Oh, he got a little cooked up coming through. Good save, though, coming back onto the track up in turn number 2. That's the replay. So Yuven Sundermurli a little bit too much coming through turn number 1. We saw a lot of drivers having issues there. And this is that battle again. Currently the battle for second and third. Andre Castro and Braden Eves, they came in together. And Jonathan, looks like both drivers did a pretty good job with the pit stop. They're back out together again, separated by only a couple of car lengths.
Yeah, but look at Barrichello now. He's lost so much time. He's also lost 2 spots to these two. They were fighting for the final podium position, and now both of them on the podium. So for Eduardo, he's going to have to climb his way back up based on pace. I think he's definitely quicker than these two, Rob, because if you look at the lap times, Eduardo is closing that gap down. So you can keep track of that on the left-hand side of the screen, but he's about 4 seconds behind the train. He just doesn't have a draft to help propel himself through the field.
I'll tell you what happened in our rehearsal race on Thursday. Philippe Dennis did not make a single mistake, did not put a wheel wrong, and he's done the same thing thus far here in our first race of the E-Series. He's just been so consistent and so smooth, even with the pressure that was being put on by Barrichello through the entire first half of this race. Dennis did not flinch even one time. The driver for RP Motorsport Racing continues to lead. It's an 11-second advantage now over Andre Castro from Legacy Autosport, Braden Eves from Exclusive Autosport, the USF 2000 champion with the scholarship from the Anderson companies, and Cooper Tire moving up to Indy Pro 2000. Braden putting a lot of pressure here. And again, as you said, a teammate for yours as well in your sim team, actually. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so he's just joined the Apex Racing team, which is a professional sim racing team. I've also joined the team at the same time, and we also joined with 2-time Supercars champion Scott McLaughlin, who's going to be racing a lot in the simulators, and we have a good, strong team behind the field. One of the best teams in the world on the sim racing service, and Braden Eves gets to be a part of that for sure, which is brilliant for him. But let's have a listen to this #1 exclusive Autosport driver to close the lap. Got very close there, Rob, to spearing that car off into the barriers. He's really on the limit here, is Braden.
I'll tell you, I want to watch an entire lap later on because, again, when I had a chance to do some laps the last couple of days, I was not carrying that much speed through turns 13 over to 17. He and Castro, man, again, this is why these drivers are believed to be the future stars of the NTT IndyCar Series. It's such young talent. Every step they go, they get better and better. The Braden Eves, who started USF 2000 last year, not even close to the Braden Eves we have right now through those 6 months of racing, the development, being pressured with race wins, some of the disappointments of not being able to have the better results he wanted mid-season, but then he gathered things up in a battle with Hunter McElroy for the championship and was able to win the final race of the season to score the championship. That's the kind of challenge. Those are the kind of heartbreaks and ups and downs, the ebbs and flows of motorsports, which really challenge these drivers and develop them not just on the racetrack, but also mentally as well.
Yeah, have a look at this as well as we close into the final 5 minutes of the event. Eves all over the rear end of Castro. You know, you don't rate your racing too highly, Rob, but I checked your Instagram feed during the day, and you are a mammoth cook. I love that burger you made, and I need one of those soon enough when we meet up.
Well, I do appreciate that. Yeah, let's say I enjoy myself in the PA booth doing commentary. I love running my go-kart, but I also love getting on the grill as well. So yeah, we'll have to hook up sometime. You'll get up here from Australia for a race, and yeah, we'll do a bit of a cookout for you.
Oh, 100%. You made me so hungry. I checked that, I think, as well at like 11 a.m. in the morning. And I was like, oh, this could be the worst time to check this.
That was not a good idea, because that was a mouth-watering burger, I'll tell you.
Yep, stomach growling. So check out Rob at his associated channels on Instagram and on Twitter, of course, too. So only about, I don't know how many laps we're going to fit in here. It's about 1:17 a lap. We'll fit in a few more. But the way it works in iRacing is that if you cross the line after 45 minutes, that's when the checkered flag will wave. So we'll have to keep track on that. We won't have an official white flag. And it's up to Braden Eves now these next few laps, I guess, Rob, to make the move on Castro. There's no chance of catching the leader.
Indeed it is. They are essentially first, second, and third. This is your podium as they run on the racetrack. But again, you never know what happens over the last couple of laps. As you said, just right now, 3 minutes remaining in this 45-minute race. And Braden Eves has put so much pressure. Look at this run coming out of turn number 16, trying to set it up. Down through 17, when we were on board with him, he was very wide coming out of the corner. Doesn't get a good enough run to make a move into one. And one is such a tough place to pass that the car will compress coming through here, back down, rolling out to the outside of the racetrack. Braden Eves continues to put this pressure on Andre Castro.
Yeah, good stuff from Eves, who, I mean, he did it before, didn't he? I'm not going to doubt him. He's one of the quickest on iRacing, like I said. He's got an iRating of around about 7,000. And for those who are in iRacing, that's quite magnificent, to be honest with you. You know, he's one of the best out there on the service. Officially, it's 6.9 thousand. So the best in the world, Rob, on a simulator have a score of around 10,000, and your average driver has about 1,500 to 2,000. So that goes to show how quick Braden Eves is on a simulator.
Trouble there for Castro coming out of turn number 9. Here comes Eves around the outside, side by side to 10-11, flat out corner to the inside. Book it. He's through. But Castro coming back up the inside into turn number 12. Eves on the outside. Who's going to give up? Eves places the car nicely. Castro to the over-under. They'll work their way over to turn number 12 and 13. Look at this side-by-side battle. They are fighting it out. To the inside comes Castro. Over-under for Eves again. Tremendous one-on-one racing here in the E-Series. Castro holds him off again. What a tremendous lap that was.
Brilliant stuff. Love the action here. I don't know if he can pull it off into one again, and then now through the roller coaster. He's going to have to form up. I think he's going to have a chance into Charlotte's Web again, Rob. But again, if Castro makes that mistake in a 7, he'll have that in the back of his mind. He's going to have to hit his braking zone. And if he locks up and has any issues, Eves will be there to pounce.
Yeah, this is one of these instances where the leaders checked out so far, well out front, 14 seconds. We're not focusing right now on Philippe Dennis because we got a battle here for second. That's what we're watching. And Castro, when he was coming through turn 8 and 9, it's that tough downhill run where they pound that curb on the driver's left. He just got a little too much wheel into it. Better run out this time. You could see, Jonathan, he was able to stretch at least about a half a length coming out of turn number 9.
Oh, this is going to be tough. Through 9, 10, and then the fast sweeping S's through 11 and 12 will come up. And I think that's where Eves could make the move here. He's going to opt for the right-hand side of the racetrack. 2x2 never works around here, but these two have been racing ever so splendidly. Going for the switchback is Castro. Contact between the two, and that forces Castro off the racetrack with damage.
Yeah, damage to the right front wing, also to the rear wing as well. There was big contact, and he's going to pit lane. Here's the replay right now. What a great run for Braden Eves. Around the outside into the quick turn number 12 and 13. They crisscross. Oh, that's all it was Eves coming back to defend his position a little bit, and the over-under just didn't work for Castro. I believe white flag, I think, has already flown for the leader, Philippe Dennis.
Yep, so this is another angle. And again, with 1 lap to go, this is the worst possible outcome from Castro. Now, let's see if he has bent steering, because I'm not sure why he's pulled into the pit lane there. That's going to... Yeah, he's certainly got bent steering.
Indeed. Yeah.
He's going to struggle to bring that car home. But white flag waves, like we said. We'll talk about this after the race. It's up to Phil Dennis to win this event. He's got a lap car to maneuver his way around. But, Rob, what an event from him.
Yeah, Philippe Dennis going by the lap car of Cameron Shields. Shields running in 8th position. Final lap for Philippe Dennis. The young driver just had a birthday last week, 21 years of age. He'll run this year for RP Motorsports Racing. Going to do what he can to find the remainder of the money. But ladies and gentlemen, what a run it's been here at Barber Motorsports Park. To kick off this year's Road to Indy Ricmotech Racing Simulators eSeries, the winner at Barber, Philippe Dennis. A tremendous victory for Philippe as he does not put a wheel wrong. The pressure put on by Braden Eves on Andre Castro throughout the race. Braden going to come home with a solid third place finish. That fight in the penultimate lap, it's the stuff of legend for sure. Eduardo Barrichello is going to hold on for the 3rd position. Reese Gold, Jonathan, up 19 positions. Started 23rd. The young 15-year-old puts on the show of the day. Definitely the hard charger. 4th place for Reese Gold, the Cape Motorsports driver. Colin Kaminski rounding out the top 5. Andre Castro, even with the damage, I believe, is he going to come home 6th? We'll see. They were far enough up on the lap, I think, that he still may end up in the 6th spot. Indeed, here comes Castro. Peter Dempsey fights his way back to 7th. Flynn Lazier 8th. Cameron Shields 9th. And Corey Enders rounding out the top 10. That fight on the second last lap between Eves and Castro is the stuff that you want to see. iRacing is just absolutely so much fun to watch.
That was insane for sure. And the thing is, if you're wondering why Castro has been able to bring that car to the checkered flag after sustaining so much damage, you are allowed some fast repairs in iRacing. So what that happens is you can enable how many are allowed. Castro's dived into the box, and he has serviced that vehicle to bring it home in 6th. But Rob, here are our final race results for round number 1 of the Ricmotech Road to Indy eSeries.
It's a 14-second lead and a win for Philippe Dennis for RP Motorsports. We talked about the championship and the $1,600 prize that the driver will be able to donate to the COVID-19 charity of his choice. He ends up winning by 14 seconds. 30 points go on to the championship battle. Braden Eves ends up finishing 2nd. Eduardo Barrichello 3rd. Cape Motorsports driver Reese Gold in 4th, and Colin Kaminski rounding out the top 5. Just outside the top 10, Devlin DeFrancesco in 11th. Reuben Sooner-Amurthy holds on to 12th. Lucas Cole for Turn 3 Motorsports in 13th. Max Kaiser, Ayrton Ori, 14th and 15th. Ricardo Juncos gets back on track after issues early. He ends up 16th. And that's Manuel Cabrera and Nico Christodoulou rounding out the top 18.
And you can see some DNFs down the order too. So that was Lewis Meyer out of the race. Christian Rasmussen we saw involved in incidents earlier on too. So again, an incident-packed race, but we certainly got some good ones for sure, Rob. But I'll tell you what, again, a race that I quite enjoyed for round number 1, and we have some post-race interviews coming up for sure as well.
You know, I was pretty impressed with the way these drivers handled themselves. Of course, we had the rehearsal race, drivers able to get kind of a good feel for it. Yeah, we had some incidents on track, but we get that wherever we go. These are young drivers who are pushing hard, trying to make sure they're able to get good results. You know, Jonathan, that yeah, they may have thought this, we're having fun, we're putting on a show here, but you put a driver behind a wheel, everything changes, whether it's red mist, whatever it may be. Everybody, of course, focused on trying to get a victory.
Well, I can't wait to talk to your top 3. We'll bring you that all on the other side of this. Hope you enjoyed the action for round 1, but don't leave us. We're going to speak post-race to your stars in these cars.
It's me, your Uncle Cooper, and this is a Cooper tire. Great tire. Now, it's not going to cook you a pot roast, but it will stop when you hit the brakes. And these truck tires can stop on average 10 feet shorter than other tires on a wet road. See, the trick is in the grip, and these tires grip like my handshake. Look, I'm your uncle. I love you. I want you to stop when you need to. Doesn't matter if it's for a red light or a duckling. So go with the Coopers. Cooper! And never start something you can't stop.
So
welcome.
what a tremendous race we had there, ladies and gentlemen. Pit stops, obviously one of the interesting things. We weren't expecting that. Joining us here right now in the broadcast booth, Eduardo Barrichello from Pabst Racing. Eduardo, talk a little bit about that race and the excitement of having to get a pit stop in.
Yeah, it was a very very nice experience. Thanks for having me. And the race was quite nice for me. I had an okay start. I managed to go third and stay there with Philip. Um, I noticed the incident they had with the P1, so I just kind of earned the P2 and tried staying there. But it was very very hard to pass the guys who were lapped because they weren't getting blue flags or something like that. I don't know. But my biggest issue was the pit stop. We weren't expecting that. We weren't told we were gonna get pit stops, but it was a good race. Our pace was quite good, so I can't wait for the next one.
I'd like to know, Eduardo, what happened in the pit stop. You seem to treat it like a real world pit stop as well. You sort of went into the slow lane, went straight into the box, and I thought, I've been sim racing my whole life, man. I just run over everybody in the sim and just enter my box. I'm not sure how much practice you had with that.
Yeah, I didn't even know we were gonna pit, so I didn't know how much gas we needed to put in, and all that. So I didn't know how to pit exactly because I didn't even practice it.
Yeah.
So I was kind of lost.
Yeah, no stress. We sort of noticed that as you're in the pit lane, but good result anyway from you. And Rob, I tell you what, Eduardo's been pretty impressive on the sim too. Can't wait to see what he does in the real world in 2020 when we get back to racing.
Yeah, first and foremost, we have 4 more races here in the eSeries, and I think Eduardo's going to be a championship contender for sure in USF 2000 with Pabst Racing. Eduardo, congratulations on a great run here to start off the program. We look forward to seeing you next Saturday at the Circuit of the Americas.
Thanks, guys, for the opportunity. I'll see you next time.
Great to have these guys joining us here, Jonathan, and we do have Braden Eves and Philippe Dennis waiting as well. Let's bring Braden Eves in here. Braden, what a battle for you guys. Like we see in so many of the Road to Indy races, it kind of pairs down into 2 drivers battling it out. The fight that you had with Ariel Castro there, we were keying on that for so much at the end of the race. Can you talk a little bit about that scrap with Andre?
Yeah, it was a great race. Me and Andre go way back. We've been friends racing on iRacing for probably close to seven years now. So we go way back. Really sorry for the incident that happened. To be honest, I think it was a racing incident. He just had like an inch of his car under me, and I went to block, and I ended up chopping him a little bit. But it was a super good race. Started 6th and just worked my way out the entire time. Just tried to click off laps and ended up 2nd. So super happy with the result.
Jonathan, you got anything for Braden? He's your teammate.
Oh, my brother, my teammate. You've impressed the team so much. You've done such a good job. I'm surprised. I don't think you've had that much seat time in the Pro Mazda because you're a guy with you're on 6.9 KI rating. You should be winning these events, man. Come on.
Yeah, man, I don't know what to say to that. So
yeah, that was a smackdown for sure.
Put you under pressure. I'm sorry, Braden.
You got called out there. Hey, Braden, let's talk about those last couple of laps. There was one lap, of course, coming out of turn number 9 where Andre had a little bit of exit oversteer, and you were able to take advantage and get the spot. He over-undered you. You guys were back and forth all the way over to 14 and 15. That penultimate lap, that second last lap coming down to turn number 12, you made a move on the outside. Was that like I'm doing this regardless of what happens?
Yeah, I mean, I had to get by. The time was ticking, and here the draft is pretty important. But to be honest, I think like the last lap, it's quite easy to defend. So I knew I had to get by. I was just max pressure on him, trying to force him into a mistake or something, and I ended up getting by into I don't know what turn that is, but over the crest. So yeah, not much more to say, but it was a really good race and a super good job by the Road to Indy to put this on. It was a super fun event, and I'm looking forward to the next one. And Ricmotech as well.
There it is. Hey, listen, you won the USF 2000 championship last year. You've got the Anderson Companies and Cooper Tire Scholarship for Indy Pro 2000 this year. You obviously want to get back on the racetrack and go racing. What do you feel right now about this particular program? It's great to be running against all your fellow drivers on the Road to Indy, but how important is it to you to get this championship as well?
I mean, it's just for fun, really. But I think it's. I mean, we're all taking it seriously because we all have our egos on the line.
That's it. That's it.
But I think it's just really a cool event, and it keeps us busy. You know, we've done a lot of practice. Like we had a lot of official tests before this, and it's just fun to run around. We don't have anything else to do. We're all in quarantine, so it's just I think it's really cool what we're doing, and like this is probably the most professionally run iRacing series I've ever been a part of, with full race control and all that. So it's just a cool event. I mean, I'd love to get the championship. It's going to be tough because especially with on iRacing, you know, you have a limited testing. You can just spend days, you know, weeks practicing the same track and perfecting it. So it's quite difficult. There's no barriers to entry, so it makes it a lot closer than real life. But I think it's really cool that what Road to Indy and Ricmotech are doing, and I'll be a part of it as long as it's here.
Hey, Braden, let's give you an opportunity to thank your sponsors as well. I know obviously the sponsors you'll have when you go outdoor racing, but I'm sure you probably got some great product there on your own personal sim as well.
Yeah, so all my real life sponsors, obviously my team, Exclusive Autosport, Modern Livery, Community Choice Financial, the Road to Indy series with the scholarship, allowing me to continue my career this year. Cooper Tires, big help, and Cooper Tires in the game as well. And then on my sim, actually, Husingveld pedals. I have a SimLab rig and Cube Controls wheel with a direct drive OSW. So huge thanks to all them. They're top-notch sim stuff. So as well as Ricmotech for putting on the series.
Congratulations, Braden. Just a tremendous job for sure. We've got Philippe Dennis to bring in here as well. Jonathan, what are your thoughts on Braden? Obviously had a tremendous run. For me, I was really impressed by the poise that he was able to show, and battling against a guy who's a good friend of his, Andre Castro, but still to be able to run there. And that was a 45-minute battle between those two drivers.
Yeah, brilliant driving, especially through the final couple of corners there. We saw them go side by side cleanly the first couple of times. In the end, you're always going to have inevitable contact when you're racing and putting your heart on the line. Because, like I said, Rob, these events, of course, in the virtual world, it's not the real world, but it reminds me of the NBA All-Star Game. And remember, we discussed this where those players come in and it's all fun and games until the final few laps, and then the heat comes on. They're all trying to fight for a win right there, and the competitive mode is on. So brilliant to see Braden show his great racecraft skills.
That was fun to call. That's one of the things, and I said this before, I don't care if it's a karting event or if it's a car event, or even here on iRacing. When you get two drivers battling, that's all you need for a race. If you're calling this battle back and forth. It's not like they were running, nose to tail the whole race. They were back and forth. There was great moves being made. I just thought it was an absolutely ton of fun to watch. But now's the time. Let's bring in the driver who's able to score the victory here today for RP Motorsports Racing. Joining us here in the broadcast booth, Philippe Dennis, the Californian. Congratulations, dude. Flag to flag, essentially. But, man, you got the job done. No mistakes. Congrats on a big victory.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I just felt really comfortable, and I knew I had to play it safe at the beginning. Hey, man, I got to say tough luck to Dudu and Peter Dempsey. I mean, they both got caught out in traffic. And I knew how to play it safe around the traffic because stuff like that was going to happen. So, I just ran my best race and laid the laps down as much as I could.
Give us your thoughts on that particular incident. Obviously, you tucked in behind Peter Dempsey at the start. We're right there. You were part of the lead group for the entire race, as I said. I'm sure you're biding your time. It was super early. I don't think we'd even got to the 10-minute mark at that point. What were your thoughts coming down the back straightaway into turn number 12 when you saw a slower car up front and then saw Peter get shuffled off to the grass?
Oh, well, I saw him come back on track, and I was wondering, I was thinking Peter was going to slow down, maybe just try and take it easy, and he just kind of went all out, and I guess the car didn't see us coming or something, and kind of just caught us all off guard, and Peter just got the worst of it. And he almost came back and took us out because he just went flying off because it was such a high-speed corner.
Yeah.
But we got lucky and kept on racing.
Jonathan, a pretty impressive driver. He was able to win that rehearsal race as well. But not only does Philippe win the race, but also laid down a pretty good lap as well.
Yep. Philippe Dennis, winner of the fastest lap of the race award. That's brought to you by TSOladder.com, presented by Cooper Tires. Congratulations, Philippe. You're winning not only races, but you're winning lap times. Win might need to put in a little weight penalty for you next race, I think.
Well, whatever works.
Little balance of performance.
Yeah, well, I mean, Johnny answers in this channel. I'm not sure what his thoughts are on that, but I'm pretty sure we might need to be considering that to stop Phil Dennis from winning.
Well, Phil, first let me ask you a question here. You obviously dominated the rehearsal race, the race we had on Thursday. What was your mindset when you slotted in after qualifying? You knew you had the speed. Were you kind of surprised that Peter Dempsey was able to lay down the pole lap?
No, I mean, in the practice session, I was looking at the times, and, in all the practice sessions, the track was getting hotter. So throughout the sessions, it would get slower and slower. So that's why we saw the lap times get set down early. And I noticed that Peter was running similar times to me without draft. So I knew that he was going to be quick. And, I made a little mistake on my final lap in quali, which allowed him to get it done. I mean, he definitely laid down a flying lap. So, and I knew that we were all going to be there, especially because of the draft. It was such a big advantage at this track. So that's what I had to do.
So what was the strategy? You slot into second place, under Castro's right behind you. Everybody's kind of lining up and getting ready to battle it out. Was the strategy just to kind of sit with him and roll through for 35 minutes before you go to work, or what?
Yeah, I was just going to run behind him, kind of just let us get a gap. Dudu had the same mentality. It seemed like he wasn't really being aggressive, almost let me by when I went down the inside. So I just think we were playing it safe and trying to get the gap so we wouldn't be in a huge pack race.
Anybody you want to thank right now, my friend? Obviously a tremendous run for you. I know that you're working hard to try to find the budget to be able to join RP Motorsports USA for the entire Indy Pro 2000 season. But always nice to get something done like this. You can take this to a sponsor and say, hey, listen, you know what? It's not outdoor, but I was able to get the job done on iRacing. What sponsors do you want to bring up here right now?
Well, I mean, first of all, I have to thank, RP Racing. They've such a great team, and I'd love to represent them over here on the sim racing world. So I'd like to thank all of you guys for putting this on. It was a great event. Looking forward to the rest of them. I'm excited. And I'd like to thank Firefighters for helping me out. And
so that was...
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Sorry, Phil. I thought you were over, but that's Phil Dennis, our race winner today, who won round number 1 for the series. We'll wrap up the coverage after this. Don't leave us. You're watching round 1 from Barber Motorsports Park.
It's me, your Uncle Cooper, and this is a Cooper tire. Great tire. Now, it's not going to cook you a pot roast, but it will stop when you hit the brakes. And these truck tires can stop on average 10 feet shorter than other tires on a wet road. See, the trick is in the grip. And these tires grip like my handshake. Look, I'm your uncle. I love you. I want you to stop when you need to. Doesn't matter if it's for a red light or a duckling. So go with the Coopers. Cooper! And never start something you can't stop.
Up to you guys.
Absolutely exciting racing on track. Had a chance to talk to the top 3 drivers, Philippe Dennis, Braden Eves, and the rest of the crew. Eduardo Barrichello coming home in 3rd. Joining us right now in the broadcast booth as well, race director Johnny Unser. And Johnny, we were not ready for a pit stop. I don't think anybody was ready for a pit stop, but let's talk a little bit about what happened that kind of changed the storyline a little bit.
Well, I wasn't ready for a pit stop either. It was one of those technical things that happened that the fuel was supposedly set to 7 gallons, which was plenty of fuel to get through the race. And somehow the car started out with 5. So how it happened, I'm not really sure, but it definitely threw some excitement in there.
Well, I can't say that it didn't make things exciting, Jonathan. What do you think about that?
Certainly will. I tell you what, I wasn't expecting it either. I've never seen the Pro Mazda make pit stops. We actually had a race once. I'll tell you what, Rob, I do remember now, about 6 months ago, it was in the iRacing official series. It was about a half-an-hour race, and all the drivers had to pit on the final lap. They didn't expect to make a pit stop. And the one driver who won managed to save fuel for the entire race. It was one of the most unbelievable races I've ever seen. And you know what? Adds a bit of fun. It adds a bit of an element to the race too.
I thoroughly enjoyed the storyline shift. It was a bit of a change. We weren't quite ready for it, a little bit of a wild card. We've got some more time. We're going to bring some more drivers up to chat here. Joining us now in the broadcast booth, the driver of the number 77 Legacy Autosport machine, Andre Castro. Congratulations first and foremost on showing great speed throughout the day. You were unbelievably quick. The battle between you and Braden Eves, in my mind, probably the highlight of the race, because you guys just went back at it, back and forth. It was so much fun to watch. Can you walk us through a little bit those last couple of laps battling with Braden?
Yeah, it was pretty fun. Up until that point, you know, we I don't think we expected to pit for fuel, but we ended up having pretty much the same pit stop time, and we came out in the same place we were before. So the whole race we were racing together, and we're treating each other well and basically making sure we got to the end of the race while going fast. And it was a great battle the entire time. It was a lot of fun, but yeah, and then the incident, he just misjudged it and chopped me and put me in the wall. So that's disappointing, obviously, but you know, he apologized, and you know, it's all good. It happens sometimes with hard racing. It's just more than anything, this race just got me excited for the rest of the series. So I got a new computer coming in this week, and
there it is.
We're gonna send it, you know, so it's gonna be a lot of fun.
I love it. So we're upgrading already. I'm upgrading as well. I got one coming in this week too. Now, Andre, I want to say you're almost flawless for the majority of the race. I think it was maybe 3 laps to go. You had a little miscue coming out of turn number 9, coming downhill through 8 and 9, a little bit of exit oversteer, and Braden was able to slip inside you. You were able to get it back, though. Is that one of the tougher parts of this racetrack, 8 and 9?
Yeah, I think that part is just sort of like you have to be like kind of on one line, like on a rail, sort of, because if you miss your turn-in point, if you miss your braking point, it can go really wrong. And honestly, for what can go wrong in that corner, that wasn't even that bad. You know, I think I recovered well, and it's just for the practice race on Thursday, and to turn on lap 1 into that section, I just lost the rear and completely spun out. And I think that's like, you know, a pretty common thing that can happen through there because it's so tough. So I was glad I was able to recover it, and yeah, it's a unique track. I don't think there's any other track on the service on iRacing that's quite like this one.
Hey, next Saturday we're heading to Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. That's a pretty good racetrack. How much time do you have on it? A lot of corners there, a lot of chance to make mistakes, but a lot of chance to make up ground as well. What's your experience at COTA?
I think I have quite a few laps there. I wouldn't say it's my most practice track, but you know, I'm definitely familiar with it, and I think for my generation, sort of growing up in the 2010s, I think COTA was a big boost for the American racing industry in terms of internationally. So iRacing got the track, I think, 2013, 2014, and since then it's been pretty popular. So I think a lot of my competition will also have quite a few laps around there. So it's just going to end up being, you know, again, like today, sort of, I think a little bit of attrition and a little bit of strategy, and just being able to qualify up front. So I'm really excited to go race there. It's a wide track, a lot of passing opportunities. Especially with these Pro Mazda cars, you're going to see a lot of draft and some good racing.
Let's talk a little about your 2020 season. What do you got going? Are we going to see you in the Legacy Autosport car? I know a lot of people are, you know, trying to get budgets together. This kind of break, this quarantine is going to give guys another, you know, a couple of months potentially to get some more budget. Are we going to see you in the Road to Indy this year?
That is what I'm hoping. I'm hoping to, you know, use this time to sort of put something together. Obviously, I have a really good relationship with Legacy, and tested for them Chris Griffiths a couple years ago. So we're trying to put something together actively for sure. And we'll have to see if that comes to fruition. Until then, you can find me in the NASCAR Wheel and Euro Series, coming back for a second year this year. And that's going to be a lot of fun as well. So we're racing at a lot of good tracks over there, Brands Hatch as well. So yeah, keeping busy, and that's the biggest thing. This is actually going to be my first full season in cars. Already signed the contract for a full season, so that's should be fun.
Yeah, that's super exciting. We hope to have you back, but of course we'll be watching in the NASCAR Wheel and Euro Series as well. Andre, thanks for joining us up here in the broadcast booth. Congrats on a great day. You end up with a P6 finish. I'm sure it'll be a little bit better when you hit the Circuit of the Americas, but thank you so much for the battle. We enjoyed that fight between you and Braden.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. It's great to talk to you again, and we'll see you soon.
Great young man right there, Jonathan Simone. And I want to get your input. Obviously, you've called a lot of these sim races. These young drivers here, of course, fired up, wanting to get the season started. What are your thoughts overall, your final thoughts, I guess, on this particular event, the opener of the E-Series?
I loved it. Some thrilling racing. These drivers, as I said, they're only going to get better and quicker with more seat time. It's I can't wait for round 2. I love the pit stop element, even if it wasn't intentional and the cars had a bit of a technical issue there. It's something that, maybe they'd be like, oh, this actually, seemed to work out well. Let's introduce it each round. So certainly some good fun there. The rate of attrition, though, Rob, I hope sort of dwindles down and sort of decreases through the next few rounds. But regardless of that, we'll speak to Reese Gold, who had a good race. He came home in 4th.
Yeah, Reese, congratulations, man. What a tremendous run for you. You started so far down in the field, outside, I believe, the top 20, but you worked your way back up forward. You had a tremendous battle with Colin Kaminski, showing some poise and patience there. Can you walk us through a little bit about that battle you had with Colin? Looks like we lost him. We'll try to get Reese back in here. Reese, you still with us?
I was working on my push to talk. Yeah, so... I was battling with him. He was pretty quick. We were maintaining the gap to P4, and I didn't want to try anything stupid, So I was just working him, just waiting for him. And then, fortunately, we actually jumped him in the pits. And then from there, I just tried to keep a clean race and ended with a pretty good result.
Obviously, a fixed setup on these cars, so you're not able to make any adjustments yourself. But personally, you're able to adjust the way you drive the racetrack. What are some of the parts of this racetrack that you found the hardest, most difficult, and which ones were you kind of potentially able to adapt and find better speed throughout the remainder of the race?
Turn 1's pretty difficult, even though it's very fast and simple. It's very easy to lose the car, which I did actually in the race towards the end, but unfortunately, I didn't lose much time. And another part that's really cool about the tracks is, I don't know the exact corner number, but you go the right, left, right down the hill is a really cool corner, and that once you get it right, it's really fun.
Well, Reese, congratulations, man. We look forward to seeing what you can do at the Circuit of the Americas next week. Thanks for joining us, and congrats on a great race today.
Thank you, Rob. See you then.
Well, Jonathan, tremendous race. Couple more minutes to go in the broadcast. Let's wrap things up.
Oh, I'll tell you what, Reese Gold started from 23rd, ended up in 4th. What a result from the young man. Let's see how he fares when the action returns for the next race. That will be on Saturday, the 4th of April. So in 1 week's time, we'll be for 45 minutes of racing action again, but it will be around the Circuit of the Americas, the virtual COTA circuit on the iRacing service. It hosts the second round of the Ricmotech Road to Indy, presented by Cooper Tires. It's the iRacing Virtual eSeries, all broadcasted on Apex Racing TV. Also, we're going to say goodbye to our Canadian audience on the MAVTV Motorsports Network. Thanks, of course, to everybody else who joined us for today's broadcast. From myself, Jonathan Simon, Rob Howden, alongside me, the voice of Road to Indy. We say so long from Barber.